Welcome back everyone, and thank you for joining me today on Rare Coin Legacy, the channel where ordinary pocket change turns into extraordinary stories of hidden wealth, mystery, and history. And today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and controversial ideas in modern coin collecting, the possibility that a 2000 Lincoln 1 cent, a coin most people have seen thousands of times without a second thought, could under extremely rare and specific circumstances be valued at an astonishing $8 million, a number that sounds unreal at first glance, especially for a modern penny, but as we peel back the layers of minting errors, production mistakes, transitional anomalies, die varieties, planchet mix-ups, and the psychology of elite collectors, the idea begins to make sense within the logic of numismatics, because coin value has never been about face value alone. It is about rarity, impossibility, documentation, and story, and the year 2000 represents a uniquely important moment in United States minting history, a time when the mint was producing coins at massive scale to meet millennium-era demand while also operating with increasingly automated systems that were designed to eliminate mistakes. Yet history has shown repeatedly that when systems scale up, the smallest failures can produce the most legendary results, and the 2000 cent sits right at that intersection of technology, pressure, and human oversight, beginning with the fact that Denver struck billions of cents that year using zinc planchets with thin copper plating, a composition adopted decades earlier to save costs, but inside any mint facility there are always leftover materials, test blanks, foreign planchets, experimental alloys, and transitional components that can accidentally find their way into production, and if a 2000 cent were struck on an incorrect planchet such as a solid bronze blank similar to pre-1982 cents, or an experimental alloy never approved for circulation, the coin would instantly become an anomaly that contradicts official mint specifications, and contradictions are the lifeblood of high-value error coins, because they represent something that should not exist according to the rules, and collectors pay extraordinary premiums for objects that break those rules, especially when the contradiction occurs in a modern era when mistakes are presumed to be virtually impossible, and wrong planchet errors alone can be valuable, but when combined with other errors they can push a coin into legendary territory. For example, if a 2000 cent were struck on a bronze planchet and also exhibited a dramatic off-center strike, where part of the design is missing yet still clearly identifiable, it would already be a highly prized piece, but imagine stacking that with a double die obverse, a die creation error that results in strong doubling on Lincoln's portrait, the date, and inscriptions like Liberty and In God We Trust, a type of error that originates before the coin is ever struck and therefore carries far more weight than a simple striking mishap, and double dies from the Lincoln cent series have historically commanded massive prices, especially when the doubling is bold and unmistakable, because they represent a moment when the die itself was flawed, and if such a double die existed for the year 2000 but was caught quickly and destroyed, leaving only one or two examples to escape, the resulting scarcity would elevate the coin from rare to unique, and uniqueness is where valuations begin to detach from conventional price guides and enter the realm of negotiation between ultra-wealthy collectors, institutions, and investors, because when only one confirmed example exists, there is no direct comparison, only desire, prestige, and competition. And competition among buyers is what drives prices into the multi-million-dollar range, especially when the coin in question also carries historical symbolism. And the year 2000 does exactly that, marking the turn of a millennium, a moment that already carries cultural significance, and collectors often pay premiums for coins tied to symbolic dates, but beyond double dies and wrong planchets there are even more dramatic possibilities, such as mule errors, where two dies from different denominations are paired together, creating a coin with mismatched designs. Something that should be impossible due to size and configuration differences but has happened in rare historical cases, and if a 2000 cent were discovered bearing the obverse of a Lincoln cent and the reverse of a different denomination such as a dime or a state quarter, authenticated beyond doubt, it would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. error coins ever known, because mule errors represent systemic failures rather than isolated mistakes, and systemic failures in a modern automated minting environment are extraordinarily rare, making them magnets for collector obsession. And then there are brockages and die caps, where coins are struck against other coins or trapped metal, producing mirrored or distorted designs, and while many brockages are minor and relatively affordable, an extreme full blockage on a 2000 cent combined with other errors could create a visually stunning and historically significant piece, especially if preserved in high mint state condition, because condition matters enormously at the top end of the market, and error. Coins are often damaged, cleaned, or mishandled before their significance is recognized, but a pristine example discovered in an original mint roll or sealed bag, showing full luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks, would be almost miraculous, and miracles are priced accordingly in numismatics. Because the probability of multiple rare errors occurring together and surviving in perfect condition is astronomically low, and low probability events are exactly what drives 7 and 8 figure valuations, but rarity alone is not enough to reach $8 million. The coin must also be accompanied by unquestionable authentication and documentation, including third-party grading by a top-tier service, metallurgical analysis confirming composition anomalies, die studies proving die variety status, and ideally some form of mint provenance or internal documentation linking the coin to a specific production anomaly, because documentation transforms an object from an interesting curiosity into a historical artifact, and artifacts command institutional interest, and when museums, foundations, and private collectors compete for ownership, prices escalate rapidly, and a unique or near-unique 2000 cent error would be a perfect museum centerpiece, not just because of its value but because of its narrative power. The idea that a modern penny could be worth millions captures the public imagination in a way few other collectibles can, drawing media attention, exhibitions, and scholarly debate, all of which feed back into perceived value, and perceived value is just as important as intrinsic rarity, because markets are driven by belief, and if the belief takes hold that a specific 2000 cent represents the ultimate modern mint error, the price ceiling effectively disappears, especially when that belief is reinforced by expert consensus, academic articles, and auction results. And speaking of auctions, the role of high-profile auction houses cannot be overstated. Because when a coin is presented on a global stage with professional marketing, dramatic storytelling, and competitive bidding, prices can exceed even the most optimistic estimates, and bidders are often motivated not just by ownership but by legacy, the desire to be remembered as the person who acquired a once-in-a-lifetime object, and legacy buyers think in terms of millions, not thousands. But there is also another layer to this story that often goes overlooked, the role of transitional and experimental strikes.